This is the story of 7 people who lived in one home. First, I grew up in these crowded streets. I call this place my home. I played in its gullies, flew paper planes from its roofs. My home was a childhood friend. But before I could even remove my pigtails, I found there the leering gazes of men. They told me this is no country for women or children, it's a lawless monster's den. I yearned and yearned for those streets to treat me as their own, but I was told a very simple solve: just don't go out alone. And so I learned to live in fear within my very home. Second, I hoisted its flag atop my house and called this place my home. I thought I'll earn the honors of the world to make my country proud. But then one day they called me a name, and it was when I found out my face is different from the rest. My skin is a bit too dark. My language reeks of otherness. The difference is clear and stark. Third, I painted its colors on my face. I call this place my home. But my clothes were torn, my pockets empty, while the rich lived lives luxurious and grand. And one day when my roof collapsed, they blamed it on the strong winds and storms of rain and sand, but it was the burden of a cruel system that my flimsy roof could not withstand. I reaped the horrors of a seed I had not sown, and I became houseless in my very home. Fourth, I sang the anthem with such pride. I call this place my home. But my body is different. They teach their children to look at me with disgust, so I am maimed and murdered while the books of the rules of law keep collecting dust. I am told it is my fate to look after myself alone. Trans people are not people enough. How dare we feel at home? Fifth, I traversed deserts, walked miles on foot, learned to call this place my home. I toiled my entire life, built this country on my broken back. But they call me a burden, a thief, at best a worthless hack. I love my home, but I do not know if my home loves me back. Sixth, I fought those who told me to leave. I call this place my home. But the rings and calls in my house of worship sound different from the rest, so they deem me a traitor and tell me I must live at their behest. They raze my house, they burn me in effigies, and they call me depraved. They tell me my life is too unholy, too unworthy to be saved. Seventh, I had memorized our revolutionaries' work. I call this place my home. So I too raised my voice when I saw my people living lives impossible to endure. I said that I loved my country far too much to let disease fester without cure, but I was threatened and tortured and left to rot in prisons, forgotten and unfed. They told me that revolutionaries are only celebrated once they are dead. And all 7 of them said, whenever I beckon my home to take me in, to treat me like the rest of the family, I am told that this concern for me must be some product of foreign conspiracy, as though my people couldn't possibly care for me, that this cause couldn't be homegrown, as though the problem of my well-being is not a problem of our own. My heart is broken by the place I call home, and I have had to learn there is nothing that stings quite like the grief of a home that you watch burn. My home is where my hopes were first born, and it is also where their wake is. They say home is where the heart is, but in truth, home is where the heartache is. And just when all hope, all resilience within me is gone, I see my siblings hurting just the same, though they don't all look like me. We all love our home far too much to not be bruised and enraged, so they cannot keep destroying it. They cannot keep us caged. It will be a long, trying and weary ride, but these prison walls must fall, and someday, somehow, together, us aggrieved will reclaim our home for all.